Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is not only in this COP, almost in all the COPs, we, on behalf of least developed countries and most vulnerable countries, we organize two press conferences. Which first one, it is in the beginning, we express our expectation, and in the last segment, before 1 or 2 days of the conclusion, we go for such a press conferences where we express our opinions on the whole process and possible outcome. Today in this press conference, I am moderating the session. My name is Rezaul Karim Chaudhary. I'm from Equity and Justice Working Group, basically coordinating this press conference. And along with me from right, Ajeb Girmi. She's from LDC Watch, and she's also from Ethiopia. And just beside me, Ziaul Haq Muktash, he is the president of Campaign for Sustainable Rural Livelihood, one of the prominent network in Bangladesh. Apart from this, we have our speakers in my left side, Justin Ginetti. He is one of the prominent researchers in respect of from the institution called International Displacement Monitoring Center. So my colleagues, my friends are there who will be distributing our positions papers. And in first round, we will give the floor to our four speakers. We will give importance to three issues. First one is multilateralism and an ambition. And second one is about the finance, which will be talked by Ajeb. And the first one regarding the multilateralism and ambition will be speaking by my friend Ziaul Haq Mukta. And the last but not least, which is one of our trust points, the climate-induced displacement, which will be talked about by Justin. So I will start the session inviting my friend Ziaul Haq Mukta.
Thank you, Mr. Rezaul Karim Chaudhary. I would like to focus on two issues, as Reza has mentioned. The first one is about the ambition. And before that, I will address the issue of multilateralism. As you know, the UNFCCC process is a multilateral negotiation process where parties come together, they exchange their ideas and opinions, and they reach a consensus. The climate negotiations started in 2007 has reached a consensus in 2015 in Paris, although we think that consensus will be unable to address the key issue and concern of the human being, that is keeping the temperature rise below 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius than the pre-industrial era. We really don't think that the nationally determined contributions that have been submitted by the country parties, these will not serve the humanity. And many of you know, exploring the existing LDCs, that the temperature will rise up to at least 3.4 degrees Celsius. So that's why we expressed our disappointment in Paris that this will not serve humanity. However, we have reached a consensus at least. Although things seems voluntary, but in this conference of parties following the presidential election in the United States of America, we have observed a great deal of disappointment among the negotiators as well as among the civil society organizations, especially on the issue of what could be done by the US president. So on that point, we would like to tell that the key point is any kind of harm to the multilateralism will be a threat to the security issue of those developed countries who, ignoring multilateralism, will be promoting unilateralism with their own ideas, views, and opinions. That will be something dangerous for their own security system, because multilateralism gives a space for all to negotiate. You cannot promote unilateralism. So that's the point one we would like to address. And the second one was, as I said before, that the MVCs, it will not secure the, it will not serve the humanity at the level we expected. So we urge developed country parties as well as developing countries who are emitting at very high scale, as well as countries that have submitted their LDCs, to increase their mitigation commitment, to increase the ambition, and that's why in the Paris Agreement there is no provision on the issue of peaking. And at the beginning of last week, we said that there should be some kind of peaking on the emission, and that's why we urge the developed countries, their peaking should be in 2020. Developing countries peaking should be in 2025, and for LDCs, this should be 2035. We urge this peaking because we think that unless we limit our temperature, our greenhouse gas emission, we will not be able to serve the humanity. So let's increase the ambition and think about the peaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mukta. It has given emphasis on two issues, emphasis on multilateralism and also setting the fixing this peaking years. Now I will go to Ajay Girmi. She's from LDC Watch. She'll talk about the whole range of financing thing, $100 billion adaptation funding in loss and damage. So I'll request Ajay to take 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Razul. I am going to talk about the finance that is going to support or to rehabilitate communities in the most vulnerable countries in the LDCs. The Adaptation Fund report by the UNEP itself said, however much even developing countries altogether doing mitigation efforts, although we need them, they have to continue and enhance adaptation action. No matter how much we do, adaptation and loss damage is never going to be stopped because of the amount of carbon emitted and committed in the atmosphere. We will be in a constant damage catastrophe of climate related impacts in all these countries who have no adaptation capacity. So that's why we propose and we need more and more finance to support these countries. A recent report by the World Bank said that this catastrophe is going to intensify and 26 million people are going to become even more poorer in those countries, and about USD 520 billion goods and services are going to be damaged and set back. More investment because of this is required for programs in the resilience and social protection programs that are already ongoing, even in the 1 degree centigrade, let alone the 1.5 and 2 degree is a completely different scenario. But the 1 degree is already requiring us money. And the problem now we are facing is the Paris Agreement, first of all, didn't secure finance within this understanding. And And the roadmap for the 100 billion, which was committed in Copenhagen in 2009, is still not clear how developed countries are going to come up with this kind of money. The only amount of money out of the 100 billion in our hands is 10 billion. And this is not even, we are learning now, not even additional. Out of the 100 billion, just 10 billion in the GCF coffers. And even that amount of money, that is 10 billion, which is in the hands of the GCF, which can be distributed to countries, which the LDCs and the most vulnerable countries are a few countries amongst the world, don't have the capacity to access this money. We knew that with the CDM experience from the Adaptation Fund or the CDM money for mitigation, countries like the most vulnerable countries or LDCs were not able to access the money. So there is a probability that countries from the LDCs and the most vulnerable countries will not have the capacity even to access the money that's available there. So we are concerned that their capacity should also be recognized to build their capacity so that they access the money that's just small but available for them. There is the Adaptation Fund that was set up to support vulnerable countries in their adaptation action, which was financed from money from the CDM, from the Mitigation Kyoto Protocol carbon markets levy. But that amount of money, that mechanism is now dwindling because the carbon market has failed. We don't have enough money. In fact, it has 80 million to replenish because of the disaster. There is the LDCF, the LDC Climate Finance Mechanism, which still is also suffering from lack of funding for LDCs and the most vulnerable countries. So these two particular mechanisms of financing mechanisms are that need strengthening, replenishing to support countries to come up from the climate disasters. But we have seen in Marrakech the Paris Agreement, which was going to discuss how to strengthen, how to replenish, how to provide climate finance for these mechanisms, has not delivered. We don't have any agreement or outcome how we are going to support these mechanisms so that the communities, poor and facing climate impact countries, are going to get financial support from this. There is another mechanism, which is the Warsaw International Mechanism for Loss and Damage, which was attached to the Adaptation Fund mechanism itself, which it's very easy to say it doesn't have any money because the Adaptation Fund itself is suffering from replenishment of finance. So, but there was going to be a discussion how to support or how to capitalize this mechanism, and some developing countries are suggesting that insurance for vulnerable countries can be one option. But we know for a fact that this suggestion is again leading us to northern insurance companies to get benefit out of these processes, and we are not accepting such dodgy business dealings. We confirm and we suggest again and again the social protection programs which are already in the developing countries that are going on under the 1 degree centigrade to be intensified, to be supported, to be financed through the two mechanisms that are there already, and more to be created. Thank you, Razul.
Thank you, Ajib. She elaborated number 1 point. We got a roadmap until 2020, but this is not very clear regarding the 100 billions. We want clear roadmap for post-2020 up to 2030 on $100 billion. Second, we are a bit happy that Germany and Sweden has committed to replenish the adaptation fund, but there is a more need of money in respect of adaptation. And there is no money in respect of Warsaw international mechanism in respect of loss and damage. If there is not money in respect of adaptation, then we have cited example from a World Bank and another agency report that there will be annually 26 million people will be displaced due to the disasters, and around 500 million loss of assets annually in our countries. Now I'll turn to Justin Guineri. Thank you, Justin. He's from very prominent institution, International Displacement Monitoring Center, who are monitoring displacement, especially in respect of disaster. We from LDCs, our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina speak about the climate displacement, and we are demanding new political protocol in this regard. So I'll request Justin to speak 2 minutes.
Thank you, Reza. Thanks, everyone, for this opportunity. I'm going to give you some more numbers, but we're going to switch from money to people. First number is 172.3 million. That's how many people have been displaced since 2008 by weather-related natural hazards. That's an average of over 21 million people per year and more than 58,000 people per day. That's a lot. Most of this displacement is occurring in developing countries, disproportionately so, and is also disproportionately concentrated in South and Southeast Asia. The same countries top our list every single year when it comes to disaster displacement. And our figures at the moment, the figures I cited above, don't even account for displacement associated with slow onset hazards like drought, sea level rise, etc. Not all of this, however, is bad news. In certain contexts, for example in Bangladesh, a certain amount of this displacement is due to life-saving evacuations. These are people who may have otherwise died in cyclones who are now being displaced through evacuations. However, our evidence shows that the risk of people becoming displaced due to disasters and climate change impacts is increasing. On the one hand, climate change is influencing the frequency and severity of certain natural hazard events. But the other two dimensions of the equation are being driven by human decision making and not in the right direction. We have more and more people being exposed to natural hazards due to settlement patterns and economic activity in hazard-prone areas of the world. And at the same time, we don't have a commensurate amount of offsets in the reduction of their vulnerability. So we have more people exposed, but they're still vulnerable. And again, this is particularly in South and Southeast Asia, but not just there. Other parts of river deltas in Africa, and even in the United States and North America. So what that tells us is that there are also opportunities. Because the displacement is occurring in these areas where there is high vulnerability, but also high dynamicism, there are real opportunities to change and to reduce the risk of future displacement through better development planning, more effective climate change adaptation, and disaster risk reduction. So I think there's some opportunities here. So this isn't entirely a doom and gloom message you're hearing from us. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. We have already said that what is the demand in respect of climate displacement. We have only 3 minutes now. We will open the floor. Is there any questions? Yes, please. Please identify yourself and explain the question in a very short sentences.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you very much for your comments and your information. My name is Isaac Wilkins. I'm from the United States, a grad student at Columbia University. And I wanted to know, I forget your name, the gentleman at the front that talked about settlements. Do you believe that settlements are causing more harm than good? Meaning, are they causing more environmental health issues? Yeah.
Would you please repeat the question?
Are the settlements that these underdeveloped countries and communities agreeing with, are they causing more harm than good? Settlements meaning that the partnerships they're making for these other countries to come in to establish more sustainable methods, are they causing more harm than good?
Yeah, if your question is related to the settlement, it was in Cancun agreement, it's agreed in para 4, the relocation and resettlement. If you consider the Pacific Islands, which will definitely go underwater, already forecasted by IPCC. These sort of countries need the full national settlement. But if you consider other countries, like within the countries there is a need of a settlement. But our fundamental demand is that at this displacement happening due to the carbon emission, the developed countries has to take the responsibility. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have distributed our position papers, and we are looking for your solidarity and support. Thank you so much. Bye.